Hello, hello. Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth Raven, Lewis Bright Raven. I'm your host, Lewis Bright Raven, 30-year veteran writer, illustrator, editor, and publisher of comics, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and role-playing games. And it's time for another edition of comic reviews. Got our friend John Norris in the audience there. He said good evening. And we're just going to go straight into things. We got quite a bit to talk about. We're going to start with ARROWSMITH Behind Enemy Lines, number 1 through 4 of a 6-issue miniseries. They are $3.99 each. The publisher is Image Comics. The writer is Kurt Busiek with artist Carlos Pacheco. Inks by Jose Rafael Fontieres. Hope I pronounced that correctly. Colors by Jose Villarrubia. Lettering by Comicraft, Smith and Betancourt. The genre is alternative history and fantasy. And it was released starting in January 22 to the present. Number 5 should be out tomorrow. What it's about, it's World War I, but it's an alternate history World War I. War where wizards and dragons are as much part of the armament as bullets and barbed wire. Young airman Fletcher ARROWSMITH, which, if you don't know the humor of the name Fletcher. Fletch is a name for an arrow. So anyway, he plunges back into the heat of the war and finds himself behind enemy lines, facing a threat that could doom the Allied powers. Taken prisoner by the Prussians, Fletcher seeks an ally as the Blood Emperor's forces plant and the Black Baron strikes. Partaking in a jailbreak, Fletcher and an ally named Guy escape, but at a great cost. Guy casts a spell to take them to the outer the fringes of the Phalanx. Fletcher has not been trained for this and becomes hopelessly distracted. Guy manages to keep Fletcher with him long enough to cast the exit spell. Soon they meet a small group of people that are waiting for Guy. While most of them will cover their trail and slip away through the woods, a young woman named Erna leads them to a farmhouse, where they can change their clothes and get some rest. Guy says he must check their perimeter. Erna stays with Fletcher. She is part of the resistance. Forced to work in a munitions plant, she sabotages their weapons when she can. They share some schnapps, but Guy has not come back, and soon one thing leads to another. Guy eventually returns and mocks Fletcher for being seduced by the Fey woman. But eventually things get serious. The Sealy Court has been in negotiations to help the Allied powers, but the Central Axis powers have kidnapped a Fey princess named a Lightborn named Lirelai. Guy needs to get her free and home before anyone has realized what has happened to her. His only way to find her is through the trolls, and he needs Fletcher because of his friendship with the troll. Guy also informs Fletcher that he is technically royalty. This comes back a few days later when Fletcher asks about the magic that he can do. In this world, there is a connection between magic and the land, and between the land and the people. Power flows from kings in exchange for their protection of the land. With time, that power was shared with lesser nobility. With time and intermarriage, those connections now form new links with the power of related lands. The only trouble is, by using these powers, Guy has now revealed his own ancestry to the enemy, and the Black Baron has sent Lupa, also known as Lycan or werewolves, to hunt them down. What do I think of this book so far? Well, considering that this is the second story arc, and I've never had a chance to read the first story arc yet, which is called So Smart in Their Fine Uniforms, which I missed when it originally came out, and Diamond hasn't sent the most recent version of the trade paperback or hardcover out yet. At least I don't think they have. I ordered it, and it was supposed to come out in February 2022, and my store hasn't seen it yet. I don't really know what to think, other than the fact that I didn't have much difficulty following this story's plot or concept. This is, I'm sure, because Busiek actually does know what he's doing as a writer, and I doubt that I could ever expect this kind of world building and deftness of writing from many of the nascent comic writers that are currently running roughshod at the big two. The characters are visually interesting and have depth and layered personalities and agendas that make them feel like actual characters, and it makes Fletcher and Guy more engaging both individually and as they play off of each other. While I've never been a particular fan of Carlos Pacheco's art, the concept of this book intrigued me, and he does a very nice job, and I have certainly no reason to be critical of his work in this book. The color work by Villarrubia is well done and fits the tone of the book very well. Sometimes I have not been keen on Villarrubia's palette choices on other books, but here he seems to be quite spot on. This is sadly one of those titles that underperforms in sales, and I'm not sure why. Even though the book did rank 29th in sales with just under 21,600 copies ordered according to ICV2 Diamond for issue number 1, this is a book that should easily be selling double that amount. And keep in mind that sales for subsequent issues will be lower, as that is what typically happens. But this does seem to happen a lot with Busiek's creator-owned books, whether it's ARROWSMITH or the Autumn Lands or Shock Rockets. They all seem to have underperformed, even though they are all exceptionally high-grade series. I'm not sure why that is. But it's annoying. Hello. That being said, I'm not really sure why they do that, and I guess it's just because of retailers being afraid to sell the book or something. I don't know. To me, it's like Busiek writes a little bit too intellectually or heady for the superhero fanboy crowd. Maybe when he does his creator-owned books, I don't know. It's either that or retailers are being chicken shits and not ordering and promoting these books because they know the customers will cut their purchases of X-Men or Batman or whatever, and just selling one Busiek book versus losing purchases of multiple titles isn't in their best interest, shall we say. But if you're one of those fans who complain incessantly about how DC and Marvel get everything wrong these days, and you want something different, then this is definitely one of the titles you should be picking up instead. Recommended for ages 16 and up. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. Let's take a look at some of the artwork here. Again, this is artwork by Carlos Pacheco with inks by Jose Rafael Fontieres with colors by colors is not by Comic Craft. That's lettering. I don't know why I put that there. But coloring is by Jose Villarrubia. I know why I did that because it was cut and paste. Okay. But there's the artwork again. Apologies to Villarrubia. Although the lettering is nicely done by Smith and Betancourt here, that should be taken notice. Particularly like the fonts for that look like handwritten diary writing. Our next book is Count Crowley, Amateur Midnight Hunter, number 1 and number 2 for $3.99 each. Publisher is Dark Horse Comics. Writer is David Dasmalkian. I hope Dasmalkian. There we go. Artist is Lucas Kettner. Colors by Lauren Offey. Lettering by Frank Svetkovic. Genre is horror, action, adventure, and this is released between March and May of this year. What it's about. It's been a hell of a week for Jerry Bartman. She just lost her job as a reporter, crashed her car, and the only gig available is hosting the Midnight Monster Show. Oh yeah, she also dismembered a zombie. No big deal. Now to protect the people she loves, she's going to have to take a crash course in monster hunting. And quickly, a vengeful vampire has just booked a first-class flight into town. And that's just the start of Jerry's problems. For one of her Alcoholics Anonymous group happens to be a werewolf, And his ex is a real bit, well, let's just say the claws and fangs come out. Again, this is apparently the second story arc. I didn't get to see the first one. There's a series that takes place before this called Count CROWLEY, Reluctant Monster Hunter. I would say in this case, it might be best to go track that one down and read that first. Not that this series can't be read without having read that first series, but I think it might prove to be more of Jerry's origins in the first storyline. And this is why I don't like miniseries at miniseries format. Do a goddamn regular ongoing series, please. You can always still collect the story arcs and the trades, but it can be a real pain in the tuchus when you missed an arc and you think you're coming in at the beginning of a series, especially with creator-owned books and how retailers don't order and market them properly. That rant put aside, let's talk about the book itself. It is clearly playing up to films like Fright Night in the 1970s and 1980s late night creature feature TV shows like Elvira and currently Svengoolie. And I think that the author does a first-rate job of capturing the campiness of that kind of horror. It's playful horror that is self-aware of its hokiness, but it takes the storyline seriously enough that audiences who are into this type of story should be absolutely thrilled with it. David Dasmalkian's writing is fun. Kettner, well, while he's no Jack Davis or Jack Kamen, he certainly tries to capture that same vibe as what those guys did in the classic EC comics with the modernized stylization. And I am glad that I did pick this series up. It is recommended for ages 14 and up. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. And here's some of the artwork from that first issue. I think you can probably see a little bit of the Jack Davis, Jack Kamen look in here. The coloring by Laura Affey is very painterly in tone. And there we go to the next one. Is Deep Beyond issues 11 and 12 of 12 for $3.99 each. The publisher is Image Comics, written by David Goy and Mirka Andolfo. The artist is Andrea Riccardo, colors by Barbara Nocenzo, lettering by Fabio Emilio. The genre is science fiction, and these came out between December 2021 and February 2022. The truth is, I can't remember who's who anymore because it's been so long since I've read the earlier issues. But anyway, one group escapes the alien world back to ours, comes back to try to rescue their friends. They come to a stalemate when the elder twin who went through the portal in the very beginning of the series returns, and everyone sort of tries to resolve all the issues, which is basically that millennia ago, the aliens and humans agreed that aliens could use Earth as their personal trash barge, and that's basically why Earth has become contaminated, polluted, so that the whole planet, the pollution and contamination mutates everybody. And it's the end of humanity if we don't get this fixed. Things get resolved. The aliens help clean up Earth, and everyone who survived the events of the series apparently lives happily ever after, I guess. Personally, I lost interest in this series around issue 7 or 8, but I decided to go ahead and just get the whole thing. I hadn't read any of the series since October, and I really barely remember any of it. But I did do a little research online after I read these 2 issues to make sure it wasn't just me and that I just wasn't, disconnected some way from it. And many of the reviews I saw of the series were very similar to what I was thinking. Reviewers were just keep buying because they didn't want to quit the story halfway through, or they really couldn't remember the story that well as a whole. So at least it wasn't particularly me not being engaged with the series. It wasn't just my reaction, at least. The art is okay. The story could have been half of the length of the series, though, and gotten the point across much more succinctly and clearly. It's recommended for 16 and up. I give it 2.5 stars overall for the series. The next book is Kaiju Score, Steal from the Gods, #1 and #2, $3.99 each. Publishers Aftershock Comics, written by James Patrick. Illustrator is Rem Brew, with colors by Francesco Segala and lettering by Dave Sharp. The genre is crime, suspense, kaiju. And this was released in April last month for #1 and just last week for #2. What it's about. Michelle, who was a safecracker from the original miniseries, who was the breakout star character. Again, this is the second miniseries. Again, there was a Kaiju Score last year that I did reviews on. You can check those out in checking out my archives. But she's back now with her own heist crew, because she was a member of a crew ran by a guy named Marco in the first miniseries. As she tries to establish a new monster-free status quo for herself and her new team of accomplices, she gets offered the opportunity to carry out another outlandish score, one that might involve literally stealing from the body of a kaiju. So much for monster-free statuses. Update that Facebook page too. It's complicated. What it's about continued. The narrative in issue #1 is basically the setup for the miniseries as we dive more into the psyche of Michelle and learn about who and what she really is and what makes her tick, which we really didn't get to see that much of in the original miniseries because, well, she was just a plucky side character, and the story was more from the perspective of Marco. With Michelle in the lead now, it takes a different direction. Last time it was a heist to steal something during a kaiju attack on Miami. Well, this time you have to effectively go inside a kaiju to steal lost Mayan treasures. Well, that's certainly taking up things a notch or two. So how does she wind up in this mess? Well, because she and her crew are being hunted by a rival boss who had hired an insider into their crew that she killed when she realized that they were basically going to get pull the job, and then the rival boss would come and steal them and kill them as a crew. So she kills the inside guy and gets her crew off the hook that way. So there's a hit job out on them now because the rival boss lost out on his money. And now she has to take on this kaiju job basically to afford to protect herself and the crew while doing this job. So, of course, as they prepare for the heist, they're being set up by Javier and his Russians associates who have this kaiju in hibernation. Javier being the same guy that basically screwed Marco in the first series. Something tells me Michelle already figured this out, so the question will be seeing what she plans and doesn't plan as the heist really begins in the next issue, #3. What do I think of it so far? Well, so far, so good. The real question is how are they going to do this in another 4-issue series total? If it is going to be only 4 issues, then things are going to have to move very quickly starting next issue, as the first 2 have largely been set up. We still haven't really gotten to know any of the other crew members, and so if they happen to die, it won't mean that much to us as an audience, and I'm guessing that at least one of the members will. I do hope that they finally get rid of Javier as well. 2 stories with him as the rich catalyst hiring crews to steal stuff for him is enough. I just don't like the whole idea of people hiring crews to steal for them and then they get all the money, but it is what it is. The whole circular hitman competition, Carlito, who's the guy who sent their snitch guy in there, putting a hit on Michelle and her crew and then vice versa is rather dumb. Just go hire someone who's legitimately loyal to your cause to do the hit instead of throwing money out there to the highest bidder. I'm pretty sure that the market has some hitmen out there who have some morals and ethics, who would love to take Carlito out for being a little biatch he is for trying to kill your crew and steal your score by infiltrating it. But, who am I? Anyway, it's definitely a book for 16 and up. There's cussing, there's violence. Would be a rated R film, no doubt. So I'll recommend it for 16 and up. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. And here's some of the artwork from Rem Brew, colors by Francesco Segala. This is where she basically shoots the snitch in the ankle. and then shoots him dead between the eyes. After she's proven that the guy is snitched him out. Then this is Ricardo calling and letting her know that, well, we're just going to take you out. And she's being chased by one crew. They're trying to shoot her down in her sports car, and she sees the other people waiting. So it's like she's just trapped between the two of them. So she leaps from the car over the side of the bridge and blows up. Everything crashes into him. She manages to get away from the river and get back to her home operations. But that's when she realizes that she's got to get her crew to safety and take the job for the kaiju treasure. Now this is them going to Russia, and they're talking about what's got to be done, and they're not happy about it, and she's not happy about it. So she takes a quick detour to find to get in touch with Marco and see if he can help her plan a way to get through this deal without anybody getting, well, not anybody getting hurt, without her people getting hurt, basically. Lastly, we have Starside, number 1 through 5, $3.99 each. These books are self-published, crowdfunded on Kickstarter. You can also go to StarsideComic.com to check it out. The writers are Dylan Klein and Lane Bretschneider, or now Lane Klein. They've recently gotten married. The artist and letterer's name is Jordan Chow. Genre science fiction is released from 2018 to the present. The most recent issue, number 5, came out on May 6th of 2022. What it's about: when an extraterrestrial fleet rips timid 16-year-old Jack away from his life on Earth, he is dropped into a war-torn universe where he discovers interplanetary slavers, a crusading army, and the origins of humanity. In his efforts to survive in a strange and dangerous environment, Jack finds confidence and family in a band of misfits fighting to unite the broken universe, and discovers that humans are much more powerful than we ever imagined. I'm not going to get into all the different issues. We're just going to talk about issue 5. Jack and his reluctant ally Riggs arrive at the bustling spaceport of Hakobaz in search of answers that will lead him back home to Earth. Unfortunately, they have yet to leave their troubles behind, as they are being chased by slavers and bounty hunters alike. It's been a spell since we've talked about Starside on the show. Like I said, the writers are busy getting married. Congrats to them. And other things like, COVID and other things have gotten away, I suspect. For a more in-depth discussion, however, about Starside and some of the earlier issues, you can go to Season 2, Episode 31. There's the YouTube link there on the screen, and I will add that into the description of the video below if I didn't remember to do it. In the meantime, let's talk about issue number 5. As Jack and Riggs are being chased by the Salvins, they are trying to get to the navigational unit that Riggs stole from a salvaged Salvin ship, and get the coordinates back to Earth so that Jack can get back home. But the shopkeeper that they went to in the spaceport claims that the memory core has been wiped. This aggravates Riggs, who then argues with Jack, and they split off, with Riggs leaving Jack behind. It seems to me, however, the shopkeeper is probably lying, and that tracks with how the story progresses. Riggs wanders off and gets lost. A holodrome bot escorts him back to where he started instead of back to where his ship is, because it's a programmed bot for the shopkeeper and his buddies, and he is captured and thrown into a cell where he discovers that he's going to be turned over to the Salvins, because he himself is on the run from the Salvins as a slave. Of course, they also captured Jack, and he's also in the cell. Riggs then jumps on Jack and starts pummeling him, but then they realize that there's someone sitting in the shadows of the cell, and that's where we leave off. What did I think? Well, the cityscape of the spaceport and the general lack of population shown amongst the spaceport was kind of weird to me. I just expect a lot of people at spaceports coming and going, hustling, bustling, even in the underbelly, seedy sections of the place. So I thought that the art was lacking a little bit in that respect. And like I said, I don't think the memory drive was wiped clean at all. I think the shopkeeper realized it was Salvin, and since Riggs and Jack aren't Salvins, he put two together and planned to nab them to turn them over for a reward. But it will be interesting to see where the book goes from here. Unfortunately, one of the annoying things is, as a crowdfunded book, it takes so long to get story between issues. Number 4 came out in May of 2021. Here we are, number 5 coming out in May of 2022. Now, part of that probably had to do with them getting married and other things going on. Book was probably slowed down due to COVID and supply chain issues and other things. And I'm sure it's just as frustrating for them as creators as it is for me as the reader. Again, go visit starside.com for updates and go to Kickstarter and check them out. Recommended for ages 13 and up. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. And John says he's got to go to bed. Good night. Okay. Let's see. All right. Something is missing in some of the graphics here, but we'll kind of go ahead there. Some people have been asking me if I'll do more crowdfunding or some other books like that. And I do plan to do that. I know I've been keeping up promoting all the crowdfunded books as of late. Hopefully we'll start getting back into that next week. As for reviews of the crowdfunded books I've bought, I'll be getting back into that on Thursday. This coming Thursday, we'll talk about Grant Lanker's Beowulf 1 through 3, Carl Kiesel and David Hansen, Boswell Jones, Captain Lightning one-shot featuring Section 0, and Sam Hell Noir one-shot as well, along with some additional comics. I'm going to try and make it so that we have at least one crowdfunded book or series as review per episode when I do comics reviews moving forward. That's all for this episode. We'll be back on Thursday with more reviews, and hopefully I'll have comics this week. I'll have my comics this week, I should say. And then George Perez Memorial episode will be done as well this weekend, hopefully. So thanks for watching. Again, Thursday, May 26th, we'll talk about Beowulf 1 through 3 from Monarch Publishing and Grant Lankert and Company. Beyond the Beyond from Scout Comics, Cowboy Bebop 1 through 3 by Dan Waters and Lamar Mathurin, and that is from Titan Books. Green Lantern 10 through 12 will finish the year-long arc that Jeff Thorne did. Again, we'll be talking about Impossible Jones and Captain Lightning one-shot featuring Section 0, Sam Hell Noir edition. Those come from Panic Button Press and Carl Kiesel. And we'll also talk about Usagi Yojimbo, Lone Goat, and Kid 1 through 5. And it's not sharing the screen. I don't know why. There you go. Sorry about that. That's what we'll be talking about on Thursday. Okay, then. If you like this episode or you think others might, I'd appreciate it. As always, if you hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons to continue to get content from my channel. As always, I thank you for watching and for your support. If you have questions, comments, recommendations of a title you want me to review, you want to order some artwork from me, social media, Facebook, Lewis.BrightRaven, Twitter @LewisBrightRave2. You can see more of my artwork at deviantart.com/BrightRaven. You've been watching Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven, exclusively on YouTube. Quoth the Raven LBR72@gmail.com is the place to email me with questions, comments, commissions. If I don't get back to you within a day or two, try LewisBrightRaven@yahoo.com. And that's all for now. We will see you next time. Have a great evening, everyone. Or what's left of your evening.